Hi, my name's Ian. I'm a dad. I'm an engineer. I've done some business. And lately, I've been seeing some really positive things addressing climate change that have to do with this molecule here. Nitrogen, the air's 78% nitrogen. It's easy to get. And hydrogen you can get by taking green electricity and splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen. Now, this molecule is called ammonia. And the reason you want ammonia versus hydrogen is energy density. 1 liter of ammonia has 6.5 times more energy, really because it's a liquid, than hydrogen at 5,000 psi. 5,000 is a lot, right? So you have way more energy in a liquid than in a gas, ammonia. Now, I want to share with you uh, my summary of a presentation. I'll give you a link to the presentation about a project that's going to happen on the edge of Canada. And I think it's a really good example of how making fuel is a really quite a different proposition for green energy than feeding into a grid. Okay, so this project, it takes place, or it's being built in Newfoundland. Now, Newfoundland is on the edge of Canada, and it's huge, but it's also pretty empty. I think it takes like 11 hours to drive across, and the whole way looks like this. It's bush with no power lines, no roads, nothing. It's just bush. So it's empty. And so if you want to put a bunch of windmills there, where's the power going? Who's going to use it? Right? Well, this organization, World Energy GH2, has this project, and forgive me, this is an indigenous word. I think it's Nuquoc. I looked it up a couple times, practiced it. I think that's how you say it. Well, they have a project that's significantly far along to build windmills, but instead of feeding it into the grid, to use that energy to make ammonia, to make green ammonia for fuels. Now, here's one of the pieces that's very interesting about this. A windmill, or a turbine, I should say, um, the nameplate on it, let's say it's 1 megawatt, kilowatt, whatever it is, that's as much as it can do. Most of the time, it's doing less. The wind isn't blowing as hard, or the wind blows and doesn't blow. So most projects, you're in pretty good shape if your wind has, if your wind turbines have a 30% capacity factor. If the wind on average gets that turbine to 30% of what it can do. That's for onshore projects. For offshore projects, they're quite a bit more expensive, uh, just construction and stuff. But the reason people sometimes want to do it is the wind is more consistent uh, offshore, and so your capacity factor can get up to 50%. Well, in this region of Newfoundland, the capacity factor is going to be about 50% for onshore. All right. So that is wildly different project economics. Wildly different. That's 66% more power for the same turbine. Right? For the same investment, you get 66% more. Now, I want to digress here for 1 second. Sometimes people talk about how battery vehicles are efficient, right? When you put in power, most of the power that comes out goes to the wheels. It's efficient. Sure, sure. So making hydrogen and then making ammonia with that hydrogen isn't as efficient. But when your turbine is getting 66% more energy captured, it's it's not as simple as looking at the efficiency of one device. You have to look at the whole system, the end to end, where the power comes from, how it's shipped, etc. Okay? So another great thing about this place is deep water ports. It's right there. So it's got this great wind, and it's got this site where you can build and you can ship. Right. So what they plan to do, I mean, they're significantly along here. This isn't just a plan. They've invested $100 million into this already. So it's underway. There have phases of wind farms that are going to feed power to this production site with electrolyzers that will make hydrogen from water. And then they take that hydrogen and they use it to make ammonia. And they store that ammonia until they have enough. And then a ship comes and they ship it overseas. And I think they're anticipating 13 shipments a year, something like that. Right. And then from there, it's an 8-day trip over to Europe. Europe is has really pulled back from using Russian natural gas, and this ammonia behaves very similar to liquid natural gas. It's actually quite a bit cheaper to ship because liquid natural gas is down at like minus 150. It's like cryogenic. The technology to ship it, the containers are very complicated, whereas these are basically simple tanks. So anyway, it's this quick shipment over. It's a couple of places to send it. All of them need fuel for power. It can be used for other things, but this is the immediate need is for these guys. Right? Now, I mean, I just think this is so interesting in a couple different ways. The first one is just the headline. This project, once all the phases are done, will be 4 gigawatts of turbines, 4 gigawatts of installed power. The entire green infrastructure for all of Canada is 22 gigawatts. So this project, this single project, is bigger than the entire infrastructure in several provinces. It's huge, but it's not going to the grid. It's going to make fuel, right? Which means it's being done in a place with great capacity factors. It's being done in a place with cheap shipping. It's being done in a place where it's really easy to bring the turbines in, right? You just bring them into that deep water port and you put them up. You're not trying to get them across bridges, and it's all right there. So the difference between a green grid and green fuel is miles. It's such a wildly different proposition. Uh, 66% more energy for the same turbine, right? Like it's so different. So do green fuels make sense? Certainly sometimes, right? I'm not against green grids, but addressing climate change will take a number of different tactics to exploit the different regions and the different opportunities. And so what you do in New York State isn't the same thing you do in Iceland, right? Like it's just different solutions, and that's okay, right? So yeah, 4 gigawatts. It's going to turn into 1.6 million tons. If you want to think about that in terms of barrels, that's 16 million barrels each year. Green, 100% green. So I'm very buoyed. I'm positive about some of the things that are happening. I think these are going to significantly dent some of the issues we have. And I just want to bring some attention to it and maybe inspire some other people to look at these things, invest in these things, get creative about these things. All right. Okay. Cheers.